Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take complex situations, dig through the information, and pull out what you really need to know, basically giving you a shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're diving into something unfolding really fast with major global implications. We're working from a key report here. It's from AP News, titled, "Israel and Iran Strike One Another a Week into Their War." Our goal today, to unpack this intense escalation, get a handle on exactly what both sides are doing, and look at the immediate fallout, diplomatic, geopolitical. This is more than just news headlines. It's moving fast, and the human impact is significant. Okay, let's get into it. So we're talking about a week of direct conflict now. What's the absolute latest? The article really paints a picture of Friday's events, doesn't it?
It does. And what's really striking is the direct exchange of fire. The AP report says Friday saw, strikes going both ways. Israel, for its part, conducted airstrikes well into Friday morning. We're talking over 60 aircraft involved.
60. That's significant.
Yeah, a major operation. They targeted what Israel called industrial sites to manufacture missiles. And critically, the headquarters of Iran's SPND.
SPND. Remind us why that's important.
Right. SPND is Iran's Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research. The U.S. has previously linked this agency to Iranian research possibly connected to developing nuclear explosive devices. So hitting it is a big statement.
Definitely raises the stakes. And what about Israel's stated intentions here? What message are they sending?
Well, the Israeli military spokesperson, Brigadier General Efi Defren, he put it pretty bluntly. He said, a week has passed since the operation began. And then added, we are strengthening our air control in the region and advancing our air offensive.
So signaling they're not done.
Not at all. He warned they have more sites to strike in Tehran, western Iran, and other places.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the report mentions Israeli airstrikes reaching as far as Rash, that's on the Caspian Sea, early Friday.
Wow, deep inside Iran.
Deep inside. They apparently issued a warning for people to flee the industrial city area there, but there was an internet shutdown. So it's really unclear how many people actually got that warning.
That's worrying. Okay, that gives us a clear sense of Israel's actions. But, every action has a reaction. What about Iran's response? What was the impact inside Israel?
Yeah, the retaliation hit Israeli territory. On Friday, missiles struck a residential area in the south. They caused damage to buildings.
Yeah.
One was a 6-story building, apparently. Megan David Adam, that's Israel's emergency service, said they treated 5 people.
Injuries?
Minor ones, thankfully. Bruises, smoke inhalation, anxiety. But this came after something more severe the day before.
Right, Thursday the 19th.
Exactly, Thursday, June 19th. A strike hit the Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. At least 80 people were wounded patients in medical staff.
Hospital, that's escalatory.
Absolutely. The article even mentions photos showing smoke rising from the hospital complex. It underlines just how serious that was. And another sign of the tension. Hundreds of people are reportedly using Israel's new light rail underground stations as makeshift bomb shelters.
Just trying to hide from the missiles gives you a real sense of the fear on the ground. It sounds like the human cost is just climbing incredibly fast. What does the article say about the overall numbers since this started a week ago?
The numbers are quite stark, really bringing home the impact. The war began June 13th. According to a Washington-based Iranian human rights group in Iran, at least 657 people killed. That includes 263 civilians and over 2,000 wounded.
657 killed in Iran. And on the Israeli side?
The Israeli army estimates Iran has fired about 450 missiles and 1,000 drones. Now, Israel's air defenses, like Iron Dome, have intercepted most of them. But still, at least 24 people killed in Israel and hundreds wounded.
So it's just this constant back and forth with tragic losses on both sides.
Exactly, a relentless exchange.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Because you can't talk about this conflict without addressing the nuclear dimension. It's hung over this region for decades. How does the article connect these recent strikes to that long shadow?
Right. This is absolutely critical context. Iran, as you know, consistently says its nuclear program is peaceful. But it's the only non-nuclear weapon state enriching uranium up to 60%.
And 60% is significant.
Yeah, very significant. It's considered just a short technical step away from the 90% needed for weapons-grade uranium. Getting to 60 is often seen as the hard part. The final jump is quicker.
Okay. And Israel?
Israel is, widely believed to have nuclear weapons, though they maintain a policy of ambiguity. They've never officially confirmed it. This imbalance, this nuclear asymmetry, really shapes the entire strategic landscape.
That makes sense. So how does this reality, this nuclear background, influence Israel's military strategy in this specific conflict?
Well, if you look at the targets Israel hit, It seems very deliberate in this context. The air campaign specifically went after Iran's enrichment site at Natanz, centrifuge workshops near Tehran, another nuclear site in Isfahan, and also what the Israeli army believes are most of Iran's ballistic missile launchers.
Trying to degrade their ability to launch missiles, potentially including ones that could carry unconventional warheads down the line.
Precisely. And the article notes that destroying these launchers is cited as one reason for a steady decline in Iranian attacks since the war started. So it suggests a strategic goal. Reduce Iran's immediate retaliatory capability, possibly with an eye on the nuclear potential too.
Okay, so with stakes, this high, direct conflict, the nuclear undertones, you'd expect intense diplomatic efforts. Is anything happening on that front? What does the source say about trying to cool things down?
There are efforts, yes, but they're facing, let's say, significant headwinds. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, was reportedly heading to Geneva, meetings planned with the EU's top diplomat, plus counterparts from the UK, France, and Germany. The E3, basically.
So the Europeans are trying to mediate.
It seems so. And in parallel, Britain's foreign secretary was reportedly meeting in Washington, at the White House, with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and envoy Steve Witkoff, trying to discuss a potential deal. So, multiple tracks, perhaps.
But what's Iran saying publicly? Are they actually open to talking while the attacks are ongoing?
Well, that's the sticking point. Before his flight to Geneva, Araghchi went on Iranian state TV, and he stated very clearly that Iran was not seeking negotiations with anyone as long as Israel's attacks continue.
A hard line.
A very hard line. Makes diplomacy extremely difficult. He also accused the U.S. of being companions and collaborators with Israel. He specifically pointed to President Trump using the word "we" in social media posts and interviews when talking about the attacks on Iran, implying direct U.S. involvement or at least approval.
Interesting. And speaking of President Trump, the article mentions a really huge decision he's apparently facing about direct U.S. military involvement that could change everything, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is potentially a massive turning point. President Trump is reportedly weighing whether the U.S. should directly attack Iran, specifically striking the Fordow uranium enrichment facility.
Fordow. Why is that one such a focus?
Because it's heavily fortified, it's built deep under a mountain. It's considered pretty much out of reach for conventional bombs, except for America's specialized bunker busters.
So a target only the U.S. could realistically hit, effectively.
Yeah, that's the assessment.
Yeah.
And Trump has apparently indicated he'll decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. military gets directly involved. What's maybe surprising is he cited a substantial chance for renewed nuclear negotiations after such a frank, or maybe alongside the threat of one. It's a high-stakes calculation.
Wow, okay. And amid all this, the leaders involved, they're not exactly mincing words, are they? What kind of statements are highlighted in the article?
No, the rhetoric is incredibly sharp. After that missile strike on the Soroka hospital, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, issued a direct threat. He threatened Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, saying Israel's military has been instructed and knows that in order to achieve all of its goals, this man absolutely should not continue to exist.
That's extraordinarily direct, basically threatening assassination.
It's hard to read it any other way. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, speaking from the hospital rubble, said he trusted Trump would do what's best for America, but then added, I can tell you that they're already helping a lot.
Hinting at that U.S. support again.
Mm-hmm. Suggesting significant behind-the-scenes help already. It shows how intertwined things are. And you also see the regional reaction. The article mentions protests, like an Iraqi Shiite cleric in Baghdad, near the U.S. Embassy, holding a portrait of Khamenei, protesting the Israeli attacks. It really highlights how this conflict is polarizing the region.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this. What does this all mean for you listening right now? This deep dive into the AP report shows a conflict escalating incredibly fast. We have direct military strikes, serious civilian impact, Israel's hitting strategic sites, missile facilities, places linked to the nuclear program, Iran's hitting back with missiles, drones, striking residential areas, even a hospital.
Yeah, and the diplomatic path.
Yeah.
It looks really difficult right now. Iran saying no talks while attacks continue, even though there are international efforts trying to find an off-ramp. And hanging over everything is that huge question of direct U.S. military involvement, especially targeting that fortified Fordow nuclear site. President Trump's decision on that in the coming weeks could, well, change the entire game.
So, as you process all these really complex and frankly quite alarming developments, here's something to think about. How might the nature of these strikes pairly, Israel hitting military and nuclear-linked targets versus Iran hitting civilian areas and hospitals. How might that shape global opinion? Who gets seen as having the quote-unquote moral high ground? And how could that perception actually influence where this conflict goes next? And maybe more urgently, what are the potential triggers that could cause a massive escalation in the next few days? Or conversely, what possible off-ramps still exist that could pull things back from the brink?